Hello and welcome back to Vintage Disney here on Brian's Things That Are Cool. It's time for the big one, my favorite film ever. So let's not waste any time, let's soar right into The Rocketeer. The Rocketeer was created by Dave Stevens in 1982. The character was inspired by Saturday morning matinee serials of the 1930s and 40s, especially King of the Rocket Men from 1949 starring Tristan Coffin. The comic made use of real-life figures and places in its fictional setting. For instance, the Bulldog Cafe was a real restaurant in LA in 1928, located at 1153 West Washington Boulevard. Unfortunately, it's long gone now. The comic also featured a tribute to famed 1950s pinup Betty Page, who appears as Cliff's girl Betty in the comic. Dave Stevens was such a fan of Betty Page that in the final years of her life, he was her friend and caregiver. Dave Stevens passed away on March 11, 2008 from hairy cell leukemia. I've included a link at the end of this video to the Hairy Cell Leukemia Foundation if you'd like to donate. I guess a naked pinup girl who dabbles in bondage just didn't cut it for the House of Mouse, so in the movie, she's changed to an actress named Jenny. So now that we have a little bit of history on the characters, let's check out the film itself, The Rocketeer. The Rocketeer was one of those films that got a lot of press and just kind of came and went from the movie theaters. In the movie, pilot Cliff Secord, played by Bill Campbell, and his friend Peavy, played by Ellen Arkin, find a stolen rocket pack and attempt to use it to make big money. But Cliff's actions soon alert the rightful owner of the rocket pack, Howard Hughes, as well as a Nazi spy ring operating in Hollywood. Thus, Cliff must ultimately use the rocket pack to save the world. The film was directed by Joe Johnston, who also directed Honey, I Shrunk the Kids and Captain America, and features a great cast with very likable characters. Even the villains are extremely enjoyable, especially stuntman Tiny Ron as Lothar. Lothar was a character from the comic book who was based off of 1940s B-movie star Rondo Hatton, star of The Brute Man, who suffered from acromegaly. Then we have Timothy Dalton, who is a lot of fun as our main baddie, Neville Sinclair, a Hollywood actor who, spoiler alert, in reality is a Nazi spy. Neville's name comes from the Sherlock Holmes story The Man with a Twisted Lip, whose villain's name is Neville St. Clair. The idea of a Hollywood actor being a Nazi spy comes from the rather dubious autobiography of Errol Flynn, My Wicked, Wicked Ways, in which he makes just such a claim about himself. In keeping with Flynn's influence, Neville is seen filming a fictional movie named The Laughing Bandit, which pays perfect homage to Flynn's own The Adventures of Robin Hood from 1938. It's interesting to note that the film that beat out The Rocketeer at the box office was Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, starring Kevin Costner. Oddly enough, Kevin Costner was offered the role of Cliff, as were Johnny Depp and Bill Paxton. But Disney decided to go with an unknown and ended up with the perfectly cast Bill Campbell in the title role. The effects were provided by Industrial Light and Magic and makes fantastic use of practical effects, including puppetry and wire work. Then Disney CEO Michael Eisner wanted his own input into the film and suggested the idea of switching out the famous helmet from the comic to a NASA helmet. Luckily, Joe Johnston stuck to his guns. Though while he loves the film, it did prompt him to say, "I'll never work with that effing mouse again." I guess time heals all wounds. It has darker elements, what with the Nazis and all, but still, it's very lighthearted and just makes you feel good. If you're looking for one great comic book adaptation, check out The Rocketeer, and don't ever fly her without this. Thank you for watching. If you want to be kept up to date as to when I release a new video, go ahead, hit that subscribe button, and if you really want to be notified, hit that bell as well. I'm Brian, thank you and good night.